Well, hello everyone and welcome to actually the second Global Talent Stream webinar. We did this last year and was really great. So Madhusha from Think Outside the Valley had the idea of running the webinar again. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Ilya. I'm a founder of a company called VanHack. Our mission is to create a borderless world for tech talent and to help companies hire the best developers from around the world. And today we'll be talking about the new Global Talent Stream visa that came out last June. And we'll talk about how you can take advantage of this new fast-track visa for technical talent to bring them into Canada. And then we'll also be talking about with Dexter from Skywatch, who's hired 3 platform engineers through the Global Talent Stream visa last year and I guess early this year as well. And so yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. Or one last thing before we start is if you have questions, there's not too many of us here. Let's just have a conversation rather than maybe us just kind of reading off slides and stuff like that. So if you have anything at all, maybe it can be small little things, just please ask, and we'd love to have a conversation rather than just talk at you. So yeah, all right, let me share my screen and we can get into it. So can everybody see my screen? Yeah?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thanks, guys. Cool. So yeah, as I mentioned, we'll talk about the Global Talent Stream. We have Paul Salazar from who's a visa expert on our team. We'll be talking about how the whole visa process works. We'll also be talking about with Skywatch, and then we'll talk a little bit about VanHack and how we've helped bring over 250 developers to Canada, and then of course lots of time for Q&A as well. So myself, I believe I introduced myself, but maybe Dexter, if you could quickly introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Paul, and then Paul will kick us off with the content of the webinar here. So maybe Dexter, if you could just please say a few words.
Sure. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and one of the co-founders at Skywatch. So as Ilya mentioned, we hired 3 developers through VanHack that originate from Brazil, and extremely happy with the process and everything that these employees have brought to the table.
Great. And then, so Paul, I guess you can kind of take us from here with intro.
So myself, I've spent a lot of years, I won't give the exact number because it's too many, in the talent space, and have over time migrated and now doing work in immigration specifically. I think personal motivations have just been, over a lot of years, I've always found that immigration and recruitment are way too far apart and need to be closer together. So happy to be a part of this, happy to share some of the learnings. I think Dexter's feedback as well, just for all of the attendees, I think that's really, pay close attention to what specific experiences people have had, because I think that's really helpful in the learning. We're going to take away the myth and debunk some of the belief that maybe it's impossible, because it's not, and help everyone sort of understand a little bit more.
Great, awesome. Well, thank you, Paul. And I guess without further ado, let's get right into the content. We have a lot of slides here with a lot of information, but as Paul said, it's definitely not impossible, and our goal is to really make it as easy for you as possible. So yeah, Paul, I'll just kind of share. Just let me know when to change the slide, okay?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. So we'll start. So first thing to remember, the Global Talent Stream, or the Global Skills Strategy as it's known, there's 2 federal departments that you'll interact with. One is Employment Skills and Development Canada, which is ESDC, and the other is Immigration, and they're 2 distinct departments. I think you can see through the bullet points the sort of high-level important things to remember. With the GTS, it's meant to expedite the process so that you can bring in foreign nationals in a much more reasonable amount of time. I think what's been consistent has been the demand for this kind of talent. And I'm sure that Dexter will be able to attest, but the whole sort of ideology behind the program, because I think it's important to understand the country has had over a number of years very similar ways in which we could bring foreign nationals, specifically for work purposes, different kinds of programs. At a certain point in time, it's going back probably 6 or 7 years, could be a little bit more, government discovered that in some ways the program was being abused. And that was the impetus for creating what up until recently was known as, or which still exists, is an LMIA. And the challenge with an LMIA for employers, for all of us as employers, is that the cycle time to complete the process does not match the cycle time that we need when you're talking about talent acquisition. It doesn't work either for employees or, frankly, for candidates. The stringent list of requirements is too much. It doesn't in the end help, and I'm saying all of this from experience, it doesn't help in the process of finding the best people. And it's really cumbersome, really for the purpose of government, to demonstrate that they're making sure that people aren't breaking rules. So starting in 2016, there were a collection of roundtables set out by a lot of the incubators throughout the country and a lot of subject matter experts and various industry professionals, where we all came together to really lobby the federal government about expediting the process. Having been a part of a number of those roundtables with the previous Minister of Immigration, it really resonated because the message was consistent, and I'm sure those that are employers on the call will agree that the demands for what is the LMIA is far too much when you're considering, I got to move fast, I need these people now, this is critical to my next quarter, my next year. I don't have 9 to 12 months to wait for a candidate. And on the candidate side, let's face it, the best candidates are getting calls regularly. It's not just from you and I. So the whole idea of the GTS, to give that context, is designed to eliminate, but at the same time validate that you've got really, really highly skilled professionals that are effectively going to make Canada better. So the reason why I say that, there's this combination of immigration and ESDC, which is sort of the HR department of the federal government. ESDC's role in the global talent stream is to validate that you are looking for the right people, that your business meets the criteria, but also, and I think this one is really important when you're considering the GTS, you need to have a plan. And I think thinking through all of those things in tandem will really help you when it comes to making a decision. And I think that that's important to do early on. So why don't we go to the next slide? Some of the highlights. Yeah, it certainly reduces cycle time. Again, going back to the LMIA, some of those requirements include having to post the job on specific government recommended websites, making all of the efforts to adhere to and interview whenever possible diversity related candidates. There's all kinds of stipulations here that make it incredibly cumbersome. The fact is, the process time with the GTS, it really is fast. Could be less. Sometimes I've gone through a recent experience where the process was even faster than the 2-week cycle time. I think what you'll find, and for everyone listening, ESDC is really in this to be helpful. They want your plan to succeed. They're the conversations that you've had, and maybe Dexter can touch on it. They're engaged. They have I would say, a decent understanding of the segment of the economy that we work in, and they're supportive. So I think that that's something that helps to make this process effective. Often we wonder, well, is it really 10 days? That component of the program, it is a short cycle time. Elise also touched on some things here, the specific work permit, the categories. Let me touch on the categories. Eli, can you just flip to the next slide before? Yeah, it's okay, go back one. So there are 2 categories that you'll need to consider. And if I'm jumping ahead, or if anyone has questions, please just feel free, chime in. turn on your mic, and I'd be happy to answer questions. But effectively, the program has two categories, A and B. One is designed really for the specific kind of talent. You'll see later on in a couple of slides down, Ilya's posted the knock code. So that sort of lines you up to think about what kind of person you're bringing in. But for the general population on the call here, those in the computer science and the the software engineering space, you're going down the right avenue. This is the right kind of program for you. The other category, A, is a little bit more complex, and we did advocate in the beginning, we did advocate for that sort of flexibility, because I think in certain situations, some of you will have needs for someone, let's say in a business development capacity, that is incredibly skilled, let's say in a specific niche market that is incredibly fluent, and all of the expertise lie in Singapore. So in that particular case, you can tap into the global talent stream at the same time, though the process to being approved to utilize that fast track program is a little bit different. To keep it short, the category A, when you're talking about something that falls outside of the typical software engineer, you need to validate that your organization meets a certain criteria. And there are various designated partners in various places, various cities, Vancouver, Toronto, Kitchener-Waterloo. They're sort of sporadically placed throughout the country. Those are the kinds of organizations that will help you. BC Tech, for example, in Vancouver. These are the kinds of organizations that will help you get qualified. It's not something that you will just do independently. You need approval. You need that sort of stamp from one of the designated partners. And bear in mind that all of that information is available on the CIC website, so it's very accessible. And then if I skip to category B, that's really the main concern. But at a high level, your organization needs to be up and running. It needs to demonstrate that, that the need is specific, that you're not just hiring someone in a sales capacity because you know a guy. It has to be really demonstrative that A, that the skill set doesn't exist domestically, but B, also that it is very, very critical to the success of your business. And there's a process to it. Category B is really specific around tech talent. It then, as an organization, it alleviates the need to do this deep dive into your company and the why surrounding the talent. It's understood that if you're looking for, a deep learning engineer or a back-end infrastructure kind of person, that you're going to fall into one of these knock codes. I will say that nothing is absolutely written in stone. I want to make sure that people don't get hung up on knock codes. ESDC is very, in my experience, has been very understanding when, I'm sure as leaders in your organization, building out an identical job description to match a knock code is not top of mind or, high priority in your day-to-day. So don't be overwhelmed when you look and say, well, that's not exactly. Think high level and think about whether this person falls into one of these general categories. That's important.
Paul, quickly, just what is a knock code? People might be wondering that.
So knock code is a national occupation code. So the federal government has created these numbers. If you see on the left column, these are codes that designate the kind of work. Within your application as well, you need to remember that whatever your target salary expectations are, they need to match what you'll see in the column to the right. If you're curious about hourly, use whatever that hourly number might be and use the number 2080. Multiply your hourly amount, multiply it by 2080, and you'll have the comparative salary as an annual number.
Well, I think Sadia had a question. Oh,
yeah. I just wanted to make a comment. Sorry, I don't have my camera on because I'm just eating my lunch while you guys talk. But I actually went through this process with one of our developers that we have in Russia. And I just want to sort of comment on what Paul mentioned with regards to the government actually wanting to help you. They, if you do make, if you do write something on the application that is not correct, they'll actually come back to you and let you fix it. One of the things that I wanted to mention, though, if you could go to the requirements slide, one of the things that actually caught us from on this slide in particular, not that one, nope. It was the one with the requirements with the $80,000 salary.
Employer one down, Ilya. There you go.
Okay, so that one there. So it says, where it says advanced degree in an area of specialization of interest to an employer or minimum of 5 years experience. So I just want to mention, like, a lot of times you'll find developers who are self-taught and who are actually very good developers who are self-taught and that don't have a specialized degree. So I just want to sort of highlight that we actually got caught. Like, I actually went through this global stream visa application process, and the application got denied because our candidate didn't have the educational requirement of the degree, and we thought that we could get away with the years of experience as part of the OR criteria, but actually we got denied. So I just wanted to mention that, and I don't know, Paul, if you have any comments or you've seen that happen before, or if you've tried that.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I'd be happy to chat afterwards on some of the specifics. But I've seen the inverse. I've seen the inverse where, again, here's a recent scenario. Candidate has a degree in the arts and has over time migrated and now is a deep kind of guru front-end software engineer. And what we did in that specific case was we were very, very diligent in some of the things that the person had done through the years of this new experience. Well, not new, but the woman has been doing it for 12 years. We talked about some of the things that she had done academically and from a professional development standpoint to continue to strengthen her skill set, and having done it for these specific number of years. Now, I think I'm really curious, and maybe it's an offline conversation, but it is very subjective. And coming forward with that right from the beginning can be helpful. I don't know if that's your case, Sadia, or if it was sort of after the fact where it came back and you discovered that. But in this particular case, it was successful. But again, there's always a subjective layer to immigration. We're at the mercy of the department and the decisions. That's why there's such a complicated appeal process. So I think in my particular case, the person had 10 years of experience. Now, I think everybody in this chat probably can recognize a front-end developer 10 years ago is completely irrelevant to what we do today. But at least in that particular instance, in the eyes of the government, it was sufficient. So I think if anything, what Sadia said, let's be really, really closely, let's pay close attention to all of those details, because they will review those details.
Cool. Thanks for your question, Sadia. And if anyone else has questions, please feel free to ask. I think we can keep going.
All right. So non-codes, again, these are specific categories that the federal government uses to be objective in identifying what kinds of wages and functionality and responsibilities they should hold. Example, digital media design that you can see at the bottom, actually, we had to create because there was nothing whatsoever in the not codes when we talked about UX and UI professionals. They were trying to loop them in with designers, which in the eyes of ESTC, didn't fall in line. So, you know, it is a good demonstration that this is not an exact science. I think in a lot of cases, as we continue to grow and we create new opportunities and all the great work that these companies are doing, we're naturally going to have new segments and new work and new things to work on. So my advice is that this is a guideline. Be prepared to show the parallel, but don't get hung up on investing tons and tons of resources to create a description that matches this particular list. It is malleable. Good, we'll go to the next slide. Is the next slide working? There we go. So, labor market benefit plan. This is important. This is the piece that you will interact as an organization. You'll interact with ESDC and they'll want to understand what's your plan. And the whole idea of the plan is for you to demonstrate that by hiring this particular foreign national, it will in turn create success and opportunity and growth for the domestic entity, for the company, for the people, for the community, for the industry. Demonstrate what you can do and what you will do to make this hire, in a broader sense, a success for a lot more beyond just your company or this individual. All right. Elias listed some good bullet points here. These are really the big heavy hitters. The specifics surrounding how you build out that plan. You know, this is something that VanHack or myself or that we can help with when you're thinking about designing that. I think the one thing that I would say when you're building this plan, should you go down this road, think long-term. Think about whether it's just one individual that you want to put through this process. Having had success, and I think Dexter will be able to talk about it, he did multiple hires. Your plan should be thinking about, is this a one-off scenario, or am I looking at bringing 2 to 3 people perhaps? Because your plan should reflect what your intentions are. ESDC is very good at modifying your plan. If it scales down or it scales up, they will work with you to make amendments to your plan. But the other thing that you have to remember too is that you submit and everyone signs off on this plan. They will hold you to it. They will want to do, probably from what I've seen, it's a 6-month interval where they'll want to check in to see what you've been working on. Are you adhering to your plan? So to give you an example, don't make the statement, we're going to hire 50 co-op students over the course of 12 months. If it's only 2, then say 2. You know, if it's not in the cards for you, don't make that commitment. Because what you don't want is you don't want this, you know, it's a big endeavor to bring someone into your organization, period, is big. Bringing in someone from somewhere else, you know, it's a process and it requires your time and energy and resources. So don't overcommit, but make sure that what you commit to, that you'll be able to meet those requirements. I think one thing that you can do internally as you put your plan together, think about some of the activities that you already have in motion, and will they line up with some of these things that, like, these are great. This list that Elias put here is a great list of some things that you can consider. So think about whether there's stuff that you're doing right now internally, whether you're hosting meetups or you're already in the process of hiring interns. Let those initiatives fall in line for your plan. It makes it achievable, and you want ESDC on your side.
Very cool. And just to highlight, we have an example of a labor market benefit plan here, which I'll just share in the chat so people can look through that as to give you an idea. And we also will be sharing these slides in this video afterwards. And we have a guide on the global talent stream that I've shared in the chat as well. So just quickly. Yep.
Awesome. And what's last? Cool. So here's, I think, just to round it out, and I won't take up too much of your time, but just to round it out, I think the important thing for a pathway to success, start asking some questions initially. if you're really in a position where, you know, talent from somewhere else is a good idea and it makes sense and it's right for your business, start to think about this. This slide deck is great. It's a great overview for some things to think about. And when you're ready, reach out to, it's a plug, reach out to the VanHack team or myself. We'd be happy to talk through some of the issues, some of the questions that you might have.
Cool. Thanks very much, Paul. And just to recap here, there's a 2-week processing time for the fast track LMIA for the company. After that, then the candidates have to apply for the work permit online themselves as well. And that's also 2 weeks, so about 1 month more or less. And then usually we say 2 months overall because there's some time for them to sell their stuff or buy flights and things like that. And I guess we can get into how it actually works with Dexter. So thanks, Paul, so much for your explanation here. And I forgot to mention actually on top of the call, so Paul is a registered immigration consultant. So legally speaking, he is the right person to kind of be giving all this advice and sharing the knowledge. So yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that very small but very important detail, Paul. Yeah, great. So yeah, so Dexter, good to have you here. Thanks so much for taking some time. And as I mentioned at the top of the call, Dexter has hired 3 engineers through this program. And maybe we can kind of do a recap, like what is Skywatch first, and then we can talk about where the need came from, and then how it's been through the process. So Dexter, please introduce Skywatch.
Yeah, happy to do so. Thanks for having me. Happy to share our experience and our story through this process and working with the VanHack team. Again, echoing what Ilya said off the top, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to either ask directly or put it in the chat. Happy to answer those. So Skywatch, we work with satellite data. We create a platform that enables satellite operators to allow them to host their data, process their data, and manage their data all for them, just because they don't do it effectively. And then on the flip side, we help companies and new markets explore this data and get access to it in ways in which they can't today. So we act as this aggregator and also a platform for everything that's the satellite data. So we've been a startup for the last 4 years, and we're just peaking at 22 employees. And so Erico, Lini, and Paulo just joined us this year, and we're the latest additions to Skywatch. Extremely pleased to have them join our team. And then I guess just one of the points that Ilya wanted me to touch on was I guess where the need kind of stemmed from. One of the challenges we've found with just talent sourcing, being from the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and having such a high density number of companies and startups in the area, you're almost fighting with each other for the same kind of talent or similar talent anyway. And one of the things we start to realize is that limiting geographically wasn't in our best interest, because in essence we're limiting 99% of the total talent pool that exists out there globally. So for us, thinking big picture, it made sense for us to look into opportunities and options where we could leverage the global talent pool and see what's out there. Obviously not knowing where to start, we came across VanHack through the Techstars network. So ourselves, Skywatch, we're also a Techstars company. And we came across Ilya and VanHack and thought this was a great idea and thought we'd give it a shot. We were, I think it was the fall of 2017 when we first connected, expressing to Ilya and his team that we had a need to add a few strong developers to our team as soon as possible, or at least within the next few months. And the challenge we've had to that point was, as I mentioned previously, is sourcing the talent and getting around candidates that are interviewing with different companies, whether it be local or even in Toronto, for example, and trying, I don't want to use the term wrestling them away, but at least in some sense trying to give them give them an option that or at least show them what the value proposition is of the company and the potential for growth and so forth, to at least entice them to consider or seriously consider the offer. So it was hit or miss for a few months leading into when VanHack and us got connected, and then when listening to what VanHack had to offer, and not only helping us source the talent, but also helping facilitate going through the entire global stream process was extremely helpful, because at the time I was the only one that was really responsible for recruiting on top of everything else I was doing at the company. So it just made my job a whole lot easier. So in my inbox, I would just get candidates that met certain criteria that we're looking for, and then we would give thumbs up or thumbs down based on those. And then for the ones that got thumbs up, we put them through our recruitment and hiring process. And then the 3 that made it through are the ones that you see on the slide here. I think overall the process was extremely easy. I know we're trying to debunk myths here, and I will say definitely in our case was extremely easy. Everything from going through the process with VanHack, with sourcing the talent, to starting to execute on the LMIA and everything, all the paperwork that goes along with it. I think Ilya and his team have done a fantastic job of putting together a really comprehensive and straightforward guide to assist companies interested in this. And I will mention that I have zero experience with dealing with immigration or anything like that, or dealing with talent overseas. And I was able to figure it out. And as I said, the guys and the VanHack team is definitely there throughout the way to support whatever questions and concerns and unknowns that come up. And yeah, like I said, the entire process was easy. I think the only major hiccup was with Erico, because we had extended him the offer at the beginning of December of 2017. With the government being on Christmas break, it kind of set us back a little bit. So his start date was pushed back by a couple of weeks, but it wasn't a big deal. But other than that, with Alini and Paulo, it was super straightforward, and everything was on time and on track and good to go. And then even with having the 3 of them move to Canada, it was extremely simple. Obviously, we were there to add support and be a supporting influence on them, as they consider transitioning and so forth and all of that. But I think we just got lucky with the 3 of them just being extremely independent, and either having experience traveling in other places of the world, or whether it's just in their nature where they were able to find their own accommodations and so forth on their own, and book their own flights and everything like that. I think we were, like I said, just lucky. I don't know if that's the case for everyone that has had experience or gone through this program, but it was definitely our case. And then so the 3 of them Erico joined us in January, Aline in February, and Paulo in March. So Eleni just finished her quote unquote 3-month probationary period successfully, and Paulo is well on track on that as well. And to this point, we haven't had a problem with communication or technical skills or abilities or anything like that. They were as advertised, and I think our being able to test and validate skills, and whether it be communication or technical skills through our hiring process, helped ensure that we were tracking well on those. And to this point, I think they've all, like I said, they've been great hires, and no regrets at all from our perspective. I don't know if there's anything else you want me to touch on, Ilya, or happy to open up to questions.
Yeah, great to hear. I guess one thing that maybe some companies are thinking is definitely interesting is how are the conversations actually with Services Canada, ESDC. So just for everyone to know, what you have to do when you apply is you fax in the application. There's actually an online fax service you can use. So for those of you who might not have a fax machine, and then they call you right the next day or a few days later. So Dexter, how are those conversations with the government? Like, were they supportive? Were they trying to question? How was that?
Yeah, and I apologize for not touching on that. And Paul touched or mentioned that, and they were extremely supportive. I think Paul had mentioned where, if you get the knock code wrong, or something that would seem pretty trivial, they'll help you to coach you and make sure that you pick the right one. Like little things like that. In our case, we were engaged with I forget the titles at the office there. But we were engaged with a person at the office, and with Erico for a hire in January, and then we resubmitted another application for Alini, and then another one for Paolo, and she kind of put two and two together, and we were able to cover off in a follow-up call, everything in regards to our applications with the other two candidates that we had put through. So we didn't have to deal with multiple people at the office. It was just, one person that was essentially handling our file or our case. But yeah, as both Ilya and Paul mentioned, they were extremely helpful and willing to work with us, and coach us through the process. I think they're also understanding that not everyone has experience in this. So especially, I'm pretty sure they have stats on this that, when companies go through this, and they were aware that this was their first time doing it. So more than understanding and forgiving with if there was anything on the paperwork that was incorrect or whatnot. Yeah, they were just great all around. No complaints at all.
Yeah, that's what we've been hearing, which is I just always want to hit on that point because it's so rare that a government agent would be helpful. Not that's maybe the wrong way to say it, is be helpful to that extent and actually be proactive and kind of, instead of looking to swat away the application just because a little mistake, they're actually being proactively helping and making adjustments on it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
so another thing I just want to ask, and then I'll let just quickly chat about VanHack and then open up to questions, is how is the post-hire cultural fit? So these people coming from across the world, maybe they weren't used to the weather in Waterloo or kind of the Canadian culture. How have they been blending in?
That's a great question. So yeah, there's definitely questions, just before arriving on, questions on climate and so forth. And I would have to dig up like blog posts or videos on dressing for winter in Canada and just like odd things like that I never thought I'd Google or whatnot, and just send them links on this. I'm like, this is some information to help you, like little things about, dressing in layers, but what does that mean? Because, you learn that as a kid, but if you're not from here, you would never know that. So just like little things like that. But I think all three of them picked it up pretty quick and were able to adjust really nicely. Needless to say, so all three of them, just for some context, all came from Brazil. So they're glad that the warm weather is finally here. But that being said, they also enjoyed the winter. For I think at least a couple of them was the first time seeing snow, so that was great. And in terms of the cultural fit at Skywatch, I think it was pretty seamless. A couple of them came from a very corporate culture, so having to experience what a startup is was a refreshing experience for them. But they were able to transition super quickly. I think the other thing that helped was, in our case, especially, was that, we had Erico that joined us first, was from Brazil. And then I think this is something that VanHack also helped with is when we put the paperwork in for Alini, that we could put Alini in contact with Erico, so that if there's any lessons learned or any knowledge sharing that could take place between the two of them. And then we replicated the same thing with Paulo. So I would say that Paulo probably had the easiest time because he had two sources to as support that had made a similar transition as he was going to, and I thought that was great. So it was something that I was facilitating on my own, but found out that VanHack had taken the initiative to introduce the three of them, and so they could like I said, exchange ideas and experiences and so forth, and to be better prepared. And I think all three of them were able to transition really nicely.
Great. All right. Thanks so much, Dexter. And so I'll just quickly go through, actually, yeah, I'll be like 1 minute just talking a little bit about what VanHack is and how we can help source globally. And then we'll open the floor up to questions. I'm sure people are very curious about many different things. So quickly, VanHack, we help companies hire globally and help tech talent get jobs abroad on the other side of the equation. We have a community of about 163,000 members from 73 different countries that have a very broad range of skills, focused mostly on senior tech talent. So people like Erico, Nini, and Paolo, who are all senior Python engineers, platform engineers. We've helped bring over 250 engineers to Canada and make over 450 hires globally. So we're pretty active in Canada, but also have a very strong presence in Europe. Some of the companies we work with, all the way from kind of large multinationals to Accenture to growing startups like, I guess, Skywatch, our kind of specialty is helping very broad range of companies hire. And most specifically, I would say the best companies for us are kind of mid-sized tech companies that are scaling and can't find that local talent. And so we've had many success cases, and I just wanted to show this. I take a screenshot every time kind of one of our members says something nice about VanHack, and I put a collection here. This is more for the candidate side, but just for you guys to see that candidates are really, really excited, really grateful, and for them, this is a huge transition, right? And they're not just moving across the street, they're moving across the world. So we're with them every step of the way. And what Dexter mentioned about having them help each other is something that we do a lot, where we have kind of now hubs of VanHackers or mentors, alumni in cities around the world, like Waterloo, Berlin, Amsterdam, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Vancouver, Malta as well, and probably some others, Porto, anyway, many cities around the world. And they start helping each other out, and kind of that word community is something we really take seriously. So I guess that's really it about VanHack. We have great developers. We help you hire them and tap into a global talent pool. I don't really want to plug too much that, but it's pretty obvious what we do. But okay, so we have about 20 minutes left, so a little less than that, and I'm sure people have questions. So don't be shy. If you have any questions for myself, for Dexter, for Paul, for all three of us, now is your time to get that help. So please ask away. If you want to just unmute yourself and ask, that works. And also chat works too. If not, I'll just keep asking questions. There's actually one thing I want to mention maybe before. Someone was asking about work permits in the chat. So if candidates, if spouses get work permits and if they can use, so the answer to that is yes. So if one spouse gets a global talent stream visa, then the other spouse can have an open work permit. And then also they can use this for their express entry. So they can use this as an extra 50 points on their express entry application and apply for the permanent residency program. And then one thing that we recently discovered, which is very exciting, is that all the candidates that come in on this visa, they're eligible for SHRED and IRAP. So if you are considering this and think, oh well, I need to have candidates be eligible for these programs in order to help me, with my finances, etc. This is a really great way of you're bringing someone to Canada, so they are in Canada paying Canadian taxes, so they are eligible for those programs, which I know makes a very big difference. Beyond Brazil, what are the countries VanHack's working bringing talent? Yeah, great question. So the reason why we have so many people from Brazil is I spent 4 years living there, and kind of our roots were just thinking we would help Brazilians move to Vancouver, hence the name VanHack, but we've expanded much further than one city and one country. We have talent from 73 countries and places like Nigeria, Ghana, India, Pakistan. Someone from the Philippines recently got hired, Cuba, Venezuela, Argentina. It's a pretty broad range of countries. We actually have one person from the U.S. working in Winnipeg right now, and another person from the U.S. just negotiating her final salary with a kind of company in Toronto. Actually, one of the companies that's on those slides that I showed. So it's pretty broad, and we're working constantly on kind of diversifying our talent pool and helping talent from all over the world get hired. Any other questions? Yes, Gwen, I think that's, or Jean, sorry. Yes, I will be sharing this presentation. So this will be on YouTube, and then also I'll put this deck on SlideShare and put the link in the description and email it out. We also have a fairly complete guide to the Global Talent Stream visa, which is here. And if there's any questions you have, we can definitely answer those. Any countries that are easier to hire from? Good question, Sadia. So with this visa, there's no discrimination as to what country the company or the talent comes from. So they don't, I don't think even ask what country the candidate is from. So in terms of the Global Talent Stream visa, from a visa point of view, I would say there's no difference. So like from a legal immigration point of view, in terms of hiring, I guess maybe it's harder to hire people. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say. But from a legal point of view, there's no difference. My pleasure. If someone wants to unmute themselves and ask a voice question, that'd be nice, just to have like a conversation rather than, yeah.
Ilya, just one comment on Sadia's question about easier, harder. There are designated foreign nationals, certain countries where the security questions are more stringent. That's not going to impact, that will not impact your access to the global talent stream or any of the process or how they evaluate. When you go to the work permit application, they'll be a little more stringent in what they require. And they'll have specifics in some places where, you know, there's turmoil and it's difficult to obtain certain pieces of information. There is sort of specifics surrounding that. But as Ilya mentioned, no impact on accessing the global talent stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had someone from Pakistan actually recently relocate to Waterloo as well, working for a company called Plum. and so he had to do a biomedical exam, like a medical exam, and then also a biomedical fingerprint. So that was a little bit more complicated on the candidate side. But yeah, you're right, Paul. It didn't affect the company.
And that was through his work permit application, correct?
Exactly. That was the post. So after the LMIA was approved from the global talent stream, then there's that kind of second piece where the candidate has to apply on their own for the work permit, and that's what that was for. Exactly right. I saw another question here about qualification. So Sharad asked about qualification criteria. Paul, maybe you can chat about that. The company has only 3 engineers. There's no income coming in yet. Are they eligible for the global talent stream visa?
Yeah, so Ilya's guide can show you at a high level, but yes, you'll need to demonstrate financials. You'll need to demonstrate sort of growth, potential, and there are revenue numbers to tie to it. So it's important that you look into that because it is designed for once you hit certain levels. Yeah, and the guides are there, the links are there. It's all very transparent. So take a look there so that you're clear on what expectations exist from a revenue standpoint and sort of, you know, you need to kind of, I guess the best way you need to declare and kind of promise that you'll be in a position as a business to support these people that you want to bring here to Canada. So take a look at the links. It's the simplest way and it's pretty clear as to what they're looking for.
Yeah, you're gonna have to show some cases your tax returns, some cases bank statements. Basically, like Paul said, the government just wants to know that you are able to support these people. Just bringing people in, and then 2 months later, you're going to go out of business. We worked with a pretty early stage startup called LiveGauge from Toronto. They're part of the DMZ co-working space accelerator, and I believe they had 3 or 4 employees. They had raised funding, so they had some money in the bank to kind of show on the bank statement. But they weren't making too much revenue, so they were able to get through the process. We also had a company here in Vancouver that had 1 employee, and they were able to go through the process. So it really depends on a certain number of factors, and I can definitely dive a little bit deeper with you.
I think in that particular scenario, if the question is about, you know, your own company and the size, I would also say that consider category A and having someone like, you know, BC Tech if you're in Vancouver or Mars if you're in Toronto. Their support and sort of validation that you're ready and this is the right thing can be helpful on some of those issues, like you're small and we haven't been generating revenue. We raised a small seed round, for example. Maybe, without knowing all the specifics, maybe category A could be helpful.
Great. Good question. You're welcome, Shrapt. Any other questions?
Ilya, one thing that came up, I think, a question I'd asked you, and maybe other folks are thinking about this, is when hiring, hiring someone successfully and they come through, and then for whatever reason you have to let them go, or they don't make it through the probationary period. What happens to them in regards to their visa and so forth?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll say a little bit, and then maybe Paul, you can help out too on the visa side of things. So they get a 2-year closed work permit, which means that closed means that it's tied to the employer, so it's tied to you as a company. If they lose their job, they lose their work permit, and then they also would have to they would have to go through that process again with another company. But they could stay in Canada on a visitor visa, a tourist visa, for up to 3 months after that. And so we've actually never had this happen before, but knock on wood, doesn't happen again or ever. Sorry, I'm sure it will, but rarely. The point is that we would help them with everything that we can to help them find a new home, a new job, and make sure that works. And then, of course, with our pricing as a recruiting company, there's a refund kind of replacement guarantee on that for the first 3 months. But yeah, if there's anything I missed, Paul, let me know.
Yeah, so the important thing here is that the work permit or the LMIA is not transferable to another employer. So he's exactly right in that it's not like a green card, or there is no, in the US, there's no H-1B transfer process. You go through the application again. So that's important. You're right. It does not mean that company doesn't get its next round and has to lay everyone off. It doesn't mean that you have to leave the country the next day. The application process to remain as a visitor is quite simple. It's not the intention of Immigration Canada to just ship you out immediately. They want to make it palatable. At the same time, you're right. It is important that everyone consider, because someone's on an LMIA or a work permit, unless it's academically tied, it's typically closed. And therefore, there will be some sort of process that has to happen before you can utilize that particular person.
Yeah, and that's actually one thing that is a really big benefit, I would say, from hiring from abroad, is that you get candidates that are very motivated to do a good job because it's their first time working in a market, in a new market. They're looking to prove themselves. They're looking to stay. The kind of candidates that we work with, at least, they're not looking kind of for a 4-month or 3-month internship. They're looking for kind of a life change and moving and relocating and kind of adapting to staying in the new city that they're in. And so we've seen candidates or companies, to talk about our candidates as being very grateful, very hardworking, and kind of wanting to show that what they can do. And so it's maybe a little bit different than hiring locally in that case sometimes. And so that it might be a little bit counterintuitive. You might think, okay, someone coming from abroad, there's this huge risk and it might not work out, etc. There is that risk, but from what we've seen in our candidates is that they're very serious about this, and for them it's something that they put a lot of effort into and want to make sure that goes well, that it goes well too. Cool. Okay. Well, we have a few more minutes, so please don't be shy. If you have questions, if there's anything that might be kind of wondering about, let me know. Let us know. Okay. Anything we've missed? Maybe I can ask Dexter, what's been kind of something that's maybe surprising, or how's been the experience in general, like with them, from like the value that they've added to the team,
I wouldn't really call it surprising. Like I said, when we, going through the entire recruitment process, we get a good understanding of all our candidates, but especially the ones that came in through VanHack. Probably more interaction through the process, because there was that added layer that they were relocating their lives. We kind of have it all. We have Erica, who's just single. We have Eleni, who moved with her husband and her dog, and we have Paulo, who moved with his wife and his daughter. So kind of a broad spectrum of experiences as the three of them made the transition. But I wouldn't say anything was surprising. I think if nothing else, we were hopeful that everything worked out, and everything did, and continues to do so, which is great. And I don't know if our experience is an outlier because everything was so great, or if it's more of a norm thing. So I can't really speak to that, but everything we've experienced to this point has been nothing but exceptional with all three of them.
Cool. It's good to hear. And yeah, we have had a lot of kind of similar feedback with different companies. So yeah. Okay. Well, I guess to wrap things up, if anyone has any questions about hiring from abroad or the visa process or anything like that, of course we try to answer as much as possible here. But if something comes up in the next few days, feel free to reach out to us. I will be uploading this to YouTube and putting the slides on SlideShare. So give all that content there. And yeah, of course, we have a lot of great talent, such as Eleni, Paulo, and Erico, and much more that are interested in relocating to different cities around the world, and helping kind of fuel the ecosystems that they join. So feel free to reach out about that, of course, as well. And yeah, thanks so much for everyone for your time. Thank you so much, Dexter and Paul, as well, for presenting and sharing some of your experience. Yeah, and if there's anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Appreciate you making time. Great talking to everyone.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for setting up.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.